wanted to start talking while we're waiting. Oh, there we go. Okay. Austin's been a great MC for all of these webcasts, so thank you, Austin. And as you all know, today we are talking about Medianotes, which is a software system exclusive to CALI that allows you to improve the skills of your students using deliberative and reflective practice. And as most of you probably are familiar with, it's a way to, well, I'm just realizing it's showing my screen. Okay, there we, wait, oh man, okay. Sorry guys, my screen seems to be confused about what it's showing. There we go, okay. It's a way to annotate videos and be able to provide feedback on videos in the same way as you can provide feedback on written work. Before we go any further, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Gene Koo, the Berkman Fellow with the Center for Computer Assisted Legal Instruction, CALI. This will be a 30-minute presentation, very quick, on using Medianotes to improve skills with your students. 30 minutes is awfully short, so we'll be compressing a lot of the information. And if you have more questions after this discussion, absolutely feel free to email, call, otherwise get in touch with me, because the software system we're going to talk about is more than we can really talk about in 30 minutes, so I'm just going to give more of a brief overview. What I wanted to introduce you first to is the system we're using right now to do this webinar, and one way in which you can interact with us, because we usually like to keep things in mute or else we end up hearing everybody else's car alarms, is for you to raise your hand. And so to get you used to using the system, I'd like to ask you to raise your hand depending on what your role is, and if this role applies to you, then basically, let me explain quickly how to raise your hand. Next to your name on the panel should be a hand that you can raise, that you click on, and it causes you to raise your hand. So click on that icon to raise your hand. If your role, Austin, is this enabled?
Yes, it should be.
Okay, great. Okay, raise your hand if your role is as a clinical instructor. Actually, Austin, I'm not seeing the hands. Maybe you have that list.
I saw a couple.
Yeah, I see the list. There are
okay, I don't.
Raising your hand.
So why don't you keep track here?
Okay.
And then also Austin will be keeping track of any of you who are raising your hands to ask questions during the course of the presentation. So what are you seeing there, Austin, in terms of numbers? How many clinical instructors do you have with us?
We have a clinical instructor raising his hand right now.
Okay. All right. Raise your hand if you are a classroom professor, doctrinal professor. Okay.
We have a couple people raising their hand.
All right. IT staff? Or otherwise involved with IT? Anyone?
No. Oh, yeah, there's another one.
Okay. And, uh-oh, wait, what's going on here? Something just jumped in front of me. Sorry, guys. Gotta get back to that page. Shoot. So I don't know what you guys are seeing, but something just kind of is screwy on my screen here.
There's a what are they seeing thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
A dashboard maybe or something?
You guys are looking at my... Okay, sorry, I'm going to... All right. Okay. Wow, that was weird. Okay. And then library staff.
All right, we're getting a lot of hands raised.
Okay. So everybody, and Austin, I guess you can just manually lower their hands. If you have any questions as we go along, click that hand button, and Austin will take note of that, and then will interrupt me at an appropriate moment and get your question in. So if you have questions as we go along, just use that button to raise your hand. What I'm going to try to do is go through a quick 15-minute presentation in the beginning and then leave plenty of room at the end for questions. And like I said before, we're going to go at a fairly high level of abstraction because this is a pretty complicated, not complicated, but there are a lot of features in this software, and we're not going to talk about every single one. We're just going to talk about the ones that are kind of most relevant and important. And so the whole point of Medianotes is to help you make better use of video recordings of practice sessions with your students. And actually, this is another question I'd like to see if you can raise your hands for. How many of you already do simulations and other kinds of exercises with your students? Just raise your hands if you already do simulations or exercises with your students. What are we seeing, Austin?
We have one hand raised.
Only one of you is doing simulations with your students. Okay.
Yep.
All right, and the person who raised your hand, are you keep your hand raised if you are videotaping in any way?
Yes, he's also videotaping.
All right, so I'm assuming the rest of you are not doing that. Well, what Medianotes was originally designed for is when you are when your students are practicing different skills, whether it's trial skills, litigation, interviewing, counseling, negotiations, any kind of practice skill. Oftentimes you can find it really useful to record the practice so that the students and the instructors can review it and be able to take note of where students are really making progress or making mistakes, showing things that they need to correct. And the way things used to be is that you would put in a kind of a VCR tape and tape the performance, and then you have to pop the VCR tape into a VCR and watch it kind of all sequentially, and that's awfully time-consuming because you have a group of 20 students, and each of them has like a 10-minute exercise, and you're talking about several hours worth of reviewing. What Medianotes does is it makes use of digital technology so that if you're recording your exercises digitally, you can use Medianotes to mark up the video, and you mark it up in the same, almost like as if you were taking a written work from your students and writing in the margins. And it's a very effective and useful time-saving way to provide very specific feedback to students, or for students to provide feedback to each other on performance. And what I'm going to, and specifically what it allows you to do is annotate their performance. It allows you to tag the performance, and also it allows you to review what happened so that you can, so that the students can learn from their own progress, or you could see how the students are evaluating themselves, and you can evaluate their self-evaluation. And it works with any digital video resource. As long as it's in digital format, Medianotes is pretty likely to be able to work with it. So what I'm going to do right now is switch over to the Medianotes software. And at this point, hopefully everyone should be able to see the screen for Medianotes. I have to apologize in advance that the video does not stream over GoToWebinar for various technical reasons. So you're just going to have to trust me that in the upper left-hand corner, that's video right there of a student doing a practice performance. And I'm going to try my best to get the sound over the phone so that you can at least hear what's going on. But let me just kind of outline what you're looking at here. So first of all, right here in the, again, in this upper left-hand side here, that's the video. And if we were able to stream the video, you'd be able to see that. Directly below it, right over here, this is a timeline. And so you can kind of see here's 5 minutes and 44 seconds to 8 minutes and 56 seconds. That's a slice out of the whole thing. And then right below it, right over here, these are the specific annotations, the specific events that are interesting and useful to look at. So it's what it does is you can divide up the timeline and be able to put notes to a specific point in the video timeline. Let me see if I can erase this so we can kind of clean this up a little bit. Okay. So below that are details on any one particular event. So right over here, you'll notice this black triangle. That's pointing out a particular moment in time during the video. And then these are details of, right over here below it are details of that event. And over to the right, these are listings of all the events in more detail.
Hello, Gene?
Wait.
Hey,
Okay.
Gene?
Yeah. Did I just go mute?
Yes, you did.
Where did I drop off?
About 30 seconds ago or so.
Just after
Okay.
explaining what this CALI.
All right. Well, what I'm going to do now is hit play. This is a practice session from a real class conducted at Brigham Young University School of Law. And again, you're not going to be able to see the video, but you'll be able to hear it as best I can, try to stream it through the phone. But what I want you to do is watch how this timeline moves forward right here. This is the timeline, and as it moves forward through the timeline, it's gonna pass through several events. What's gonna happen is you're gonna watch this event over here jump forward, and the notes are gonna change as the timeline moves forward, so that you can see different notes that sync to the video at different times, and that's how you basically annotate a video. So I'm going to hit play. I'm going to try to hold up my phone to the speaker. And again, just take note of how the timeline passes through the different events and how the events jump forward as we go. Hit play.
Hey, Gene, can you turn up the volume?
Unfortunately, that's about as good as I can get in the volume here. Sorry.
It's pretty tough to hear, so.
Yeah, sorry about that. I have a really weak computer. Just trying to see what I can do to up the volume here. That's about as high as it goes, unfortunately.
What you shared, I was able to look at a couple, and I'll share those with you. And if you have anything to add or change or supplement, then please feel free to do so. I got that you were interested in collecting past rent that is owed to you.
Well, actually, we're in one big long event right here, so I'm going to pause. So, again, what you should have been able to see, and I'm going to rewind this timeline now. What you should have been able to see is how we pass through several different events. And as we do that, let me hit play again, and I'll go back to where we just were.
Right. If they only knew, right? Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Okay, well, I appreciate you sharing that with me. Anything else as far as facts go that you think are necessary for me to know? No, I think that's probably it. Okay.
So again, I'll just stop right over here, and again, what you'll notice is that what you should have noticed, and there might be a little bit of a lag because of the streaming, what you should have noticed is how the timeline passed through 3 different events, each one with a different set of notes from the student or from the professor describing what was happening at that moment in time in this mock interview. It was an interview between 2 students, and one of them was playing the client and the other was playing the attorney. So you'll see here, here's one event where the student was evaluating himself, and he was saying, this was just a brief statement that helped me side with the client. And then the next statement was, asked him anything else and reminded him what the topic was. And you'll see here, that's in red. I hope you can see that the color there. And then in black, right afterwards, is feedback from the professor, Larry Farmer, who says, again, nicely done. And then finally, the next event was, gave him a rough outline of what I was doing and where we were in the process, made it sound a little, so there's, these are the ways in which the student in red was evaluating himself, and then the professor in the black text was responding to that self-evaluation. What you'll notice is if I click on any of these events, the timeline here, when I click here, or here, or here, the timeline will jump to the appropriate point in the video. which if any of you have ever done this on a VCR tape, is extraordinarily time-consuming. Finding the right point in the timeline. If you had to write down, 3 minutes, 32 seconds, you have to fast forward and rewind until you get 3 minutes and 32 seconds. What's nice about this software is that you can jump straight to the event. So if I click here, you'll notice that the timeline now has moved forward to the next event. And then if I click again on the next event, you'll notice we'll jump to event 8. So this is, it allows you to really pinpoint specific interesting time moments in the timeline and then make comments on it. And then you can go back and forth with your students with those comments, or you can have students comment on each other's performance and you can just review that. There's a lot of different ways in which you can use this software as a very effective feedback tool for actual performance. And unlike existing ways of doing things, most of the time you just kind of go around listening to what's happening, and then you do everything from memory. And that's pretty unreliable because you can forget what was going on, and also the student in particular can forget what they were doing. So when you say to them, well, remember when you did this, and they may not remember. With the video and with the ability to annotate the video, you can show them what they were doing, and they can improve on that specific performance by being able to see it and then being able to do it differently and then recording themselves doing it, and then you can give them positive feedback to say, well, you did a much better job this time, and here's why, and be able to look at the actual performance. So again, I apologize that you can't see the video, but it's over here in this black screen upper left-hand corner if you were able to see it. So again, you can jump around on the timeline simply by clicking on different events, and then hitting play will let you see that particular moment in time. So if we were starting from scratch, and I was a student, and I had a brand new video here, and you just imagine all these events were gone, what I could do is I can watch this video. I'm going to find a blank spot in this right here. That's nice. And let's say I saw something that was happening right here that was something worth making a comment about. What I would do is pause the video, and then I would click this plus button right here. And then with that plus button, I would be able to create a new event. And then be able to give myself or another student feedback. One of the nice things you can also do is you can drag the beginning or the end of the event so you can match it up with what's going on in the video. And it doesn't have to be precise. It's up to you how much time you want to spend making it exactly the right moment. It's probably more important just to get the general timeline so that you're basically flagging it for the student or for each other to see and say, here's something you really need to pay attention to. But you can kind of see that you may not get the exact right moment, so you want to kind of drag it a little bit and kind of change the beginning and ending time of the event relative to the overall timeline of the practice. And again, you can just use this free text, type whatever you want to type, and give that very specific custom feedback. What you can then do is wrap this up and hand it over as a file to the next person who can open it, look at all the comments, and then just as you're seeing Larry Farmer doing here in his feedback, the next person can add more comments, and it'll show up as a different color and a different set of initials. So here you had the student evaluating himself, and then below that was the professor evaluating them. I'm going to pause here and see if anybody has any questions. I just went through the very, very basics of what Medianotes does and how Medianotes allows you to put annotations onto a video so that people can provide each other feedback. Hello?
Hello?
Hello? sorry. There just seemed like there was almost a click there. Okay, so I'm going to pause right there and see if there's any questions or comments at this point.
You can just raise your hand or send me a question if you have one. Doesn't look like there's anything right now.
Nope. Okay. So some of you may notice that there's all of these very colorful squares on the screen that go along with each of these events. And what those are tags. And tags are a really nice feature that allow you to focus your students on a specific way of thinking about the practice that they're doing. So one thing that you can do that's very easy, doesn't require any preparation at all, is for the students to just write free text about themselves, to just comment on what they're doing, or for you to comment on what they're doing. The advantage of tags is that they're all pre-built concepts that you use to label what's going on. And so here what you're seeing is a framework for thinking about how to do a client interview that includes elements like what kinds of questions are there. You can have an open question, you can have an anything else question, you can have closed questions. And so what that allows you to do is put a specific tag on the event so that you can check people's understanding and make sure that they're using concepts correctly. So I can pull up my list of tags right here. And here they also have descriptions. So these are all the tags that are lawyer statements. And you can kind of see the different kinds of statements the lawyer might make. So here's an open question, closed question, and an anything else question. I might see that the lawyer is asking a question, and I might look at that and say, well, what kind of question is that? I think that's an open question. So I would take the open question tag and use it to, use it to tag this particular new event that I just created. And now I've indicated to myself and to other people who are reviewing this project, I've just asked an open question. Now, that's really helpful to you as an instructor because you might find that your students are getting really confused about what constitutes an open question. So by getting your students to label whether something is open or closed, you can quickly check through and make sure that they're properly labeling the questions as open or closed, and be able to see that they're either getting the concept or they're going to need a little bit more explanation. And actually open and closed questions are deceptively simple. It seems like it's pretty easy to spot an open question, but oftentimes you have a lot of open questions that are really closed questions because you're, even though you're putting in the form of an open question, you're really leading the client down the path that you want them to follow, and that can be counterproductive in certain interviewing situations. So in any event, what this allows you to do is check on your students' understanding. Do they really know what an open question is? Do they really know what a closed question is? What I can do looking at this to review the project is say, show me. I'm going to pull down this menu here, and so we're going to go to the final part of this, which is reviewing. How do you review a project, and how does Medianotes make it easier and faster for you to review projects? I'm going to pull down this list of tags and say, I only want to see events that have been tagged open questions. So show me all the events that the reviewer thought was an open question. And so now everything that's not labeled an open question has been filtered out of this list that you're seeing here. So you're seeing we're jumping from event 1 to event 6 to event 10, so events 2 through 5 and events 7 through 9. We're not open questions, so we're not seeing them. And that allows me to just click on any one of these and then play a few minutes of it. So I'll pick this one. And then I'm going to hit play, and hopefully this time you'll be able to hear this. And we'll see if it's an open question or not.
And then you also mentioned that you want to keep things, on a relationship level, you want to keep things smooth with both your frat brother and your other tenants, and worry about a potential backlash. Yeah. I mean that's one.
Actually, that's not an open question. That's a clarifying or a checking understanding question. So that's what's interesting is that you can provide some feedback and say, I don't know if you picked the right tag on this. So this is another tool that really lets you speed up your reviewing. You might have this intuition, I'm not sure my students are getting the difference between open and closed questions. And so what you can have them do is go through their own performances and have them label open closed questions, and then you just quickly check through a handful of them and look at all the open questions or all the closed questions and to make sure that they're actually properly labeling them. And instead of going through the entire 30 minutes of video or entire 20 minutes of video, you can just jump straight to that event. In about 5 seconds, we just determined that this was a fairly bad labeling. It's not really an open question, and you can kind of give some feedback. Maybe you're not quite understanding what an open question is, and here's more explanation about how to think about this particular frame. So one of the great things that Medianotes allows you to do as an instructor is to structure the way you teach so that the students are reviewing each other and reviewing themselves, and all you need to do is check on their reviewing by doing what I just showed you, and just looking at the annotations and feedback they're giving themselves and to each other, and then kind of give them feedback on that. This allows you to do a lot of the kind of in-depth, hands-on practice exercises, but then not end up with 30 hours of work every week reviewing piles and piles of videos, by letting the students kind of do the evaluation first, and then you just check on what the students are doing. And that's one particular way that you can use Medianotes. But to get back to the big picture, what Medianotes is for is as a way of annotating video and attaching comments and suggestions and feedback to a video, and specifically to a video timeline, which is otherwise very difficult to do. The only other way to do this is to write down on a piece of paper, well, at 3 minutes and 32 seconds, here's what happened, and here's my feedback, and then whoever's getting my feedback then has to kind of scroll the time around until they find 3 minutes, 32 seconds. Medianotes removes all of that and makes it much, much easier for you to do. So we're able to do just a very quick summary of what Medianotes does. Its main benefits to you and in your skills development courses is it gives you this very rigorous evidence-based feedback. You can look at the specific comments that students are giving to each other, and students can target those comments to the actual performance rather than give generic feedback like, oh, I thought you did really well. You can actually point to a specific moment and say, at this particular moment, you're doing a very good job because. It also lets you reinforce the conceptual framework. So again, just to use the relatively small example of the open questions versus closed questions, by using those tags, you're reinforcing, first of all, that there is a difference between these different kinds of questions, and helping students to think more clearly about, is it an open or a closed question, especially if you're explaining to them why it matters, that you understand the difference. Using those tags are a great way to reinforce the frameworks that you're trying to teach, so that students can step back from their specific performance and be able to evaluate themselves. And finally, it enables you to disperse the work. One way that the instructors at Brigham Young have used Medianotes to great effect is to bring in alumni who have graduated from their interviewing and counseling classes in the past and brought them back as reviewers. And again, that takes significant load off of the backs of the professors and allows you to draw on a different set of expertise than you normally have access to. And it would be a wonderful thing if we were all able to make better use of our networks of practicing professionals to give real feedback to our students based on real-world experience. So this is one way to think about how to do it. You could have students working with practicing professionals and having the professionals review their practice and give them feedback from the point of view of actual working in the field rather than, kind of just a general abstraction. So that could be really, really valuable. It could be a way to bring alumni in and involve them, again, in the education and in their alma mater, and be able to leverage all of their wisdom and expertise that they've been developing in practice. So these are all the reasons why we're very excited about Medianotes. Medianotes is absolutely free for you to use and download for all CALI members. All you have to do, actually I don't know if I put it on this, nope. You just basically go to cali.org/Medianotes, and from there you can download your copy of Medianotes. Just make sure that you're logged in as a CALI member, and you'll be able to get a registration code, and through that code you'll be able to activate your official copy of Medianotes. What you do is you go to, when you're in Medianotes, you go to Register Medianotes right here under the Help menu, and you enter your license key that you were given while you were logged in. And if you have any trouble with that, I just went through this very quickly. Give me a call, send me an email. I'll be very happy to walk you through it. It's very simple once you actually are doing it, but it can be kind of hard to explain. So again, Medianotes is completely free to use by any member of CALI, and we hope you will use it, and I hope you will discuss with your peers and other folks who are doing skills-based training to think about how you might do video recording of practice sessions and why that would be useful and what kind of value it would add to your students' ability to learn the skills that they really need to be able to practice in the real-world settings that they're going to be in. So I'm going to pause again and see if there's any further questions or comments or suggestions that anybody might have.
Hey, Gene?
Yeah.
Deb actually has a question for you.
Shoot.
Hi, Gene. Quick question. The tags or the descriptions that it's an open question or an emphatic statement, where do those come from? Are they built into the software, or does each faculty member have to put those in on their own?
We're allowing people to share these tags, but you can create your own tag. And so normally when you start with a project, there aren't any tags at all, and you have to create them yourselves. And so basically you can just click this button that allows you to create a new tag, and then you type whatever you want, and then that becomes a tag that you can use, that your students can use. So you can customize the tags to whatever you're trying to teach. And we're making the tags that were created for interviewing and counseling available for others to share. And if you have tags that you want to create for things like negotiations or litigation, or if you have a different way of thinking about interviewing and counseling, first of all, by all means, create your own tag. And second of all, it would be great if you're willing to share that with your peers so that they can also make use of that particular framework and way of thinking about practice.
Great. Thanks, Gene. Any other questions from anybody? Just raise your hand. Should I unmute people?
Yeah, you may as well unmute.
Okay, Larry Ross actually has a question. And Larry, I'm going to unmute you so you can actually ask this.
Just wondering if you can talk for a moment about how some of the schools that use this actually handle the workflow, how they get the file, recorded file to faculty, how they get it back from faculty, distribute copies to students.
Absolutely. My recommendation for how you do this is through using a USB drive to move the files around with, because it actually turns out that it's fairly easy to keep track of physical items being passed back and forth, and much easier to keep track of that, and it's also much faster than it is to upload to a website and then download again. If you do want to do that at Brigham Young, they do have a SharePoint website that's set up where students upload the videos and then download them again. That requires pretty considerable coordination and infrastructure because you have to do things like set up the permissions so that only the people who are in the class are able to get there, and then be able to everybody name all files correctly so you can find them, and all sorts of other things. Which if you're going to do dozens of this kind of thing, then it might be worth doing that, but if you're not, that might be a big waste of time. So conceptually, people have a fairly easy time thinking about, okay, I'm going to take this file that I just recorded or this review file that I just created and put it on this USB key. I'm going to walk it over to my partner, and she's going to pop it into her hard drive and then review it and then put it back on put the comments and the video back onto the USB key, walk it over to me, and then give it back to me. And that's obviously not possible to do if you're in a distance situation, but it's one way that it can really work. And we found that especially if you don't have a very customizable upload-download interface, simply using the physical handoff can be really effective. As to who's doing the reviewing, you can have students partnered up, and you can have the students just review each other off the bat, or you can have the students review themselves, and then you can have their partners review them, or you can review them yourself. There's all sorts of different orders in which people review each other. I think that would turn quite a bit on your pedagogy and your available resources. The software is simply a tool that allows you to do any of the things that you might come up with. Who does it and when and in what order, that's up to you.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, is there anyone else? Raise your hand. We're running long on time, so I think we can go ahead and wrap it up, Gene.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being here. And again, you can download Medianotes at www.cali.org/Medianotes. If you go to the CALI website, you'll find links to Medianotes. Again, it's absolutely free and available for you to use as a CALI member. So take advantage of that. Call me, email me if you have any questions about how to use this, how to deploy it, what the whole point is. And I'd be very, very happy to work with you to make sure that your students get the best skills training that they can have.